So next we have Brandon Robinson. Brandon is from New Horizon Aircraft. I just recently put the research out on the company. It's on the website. This story came to me from a friend of mine in the IR space. This industry is sort of burgeoning. I'm not even sure the industry really exists yet, parts of it, but I think that Brandon has done a great job of positioning this kind of in the emergence of this new industry and maybe a way to take advantage of sort of existing legacy markets. And I also think that if you look around at some of the public comms, Joby and Eve, and some of the urban air stories that are out there, they've attracted a lot of investor interest, some from very big companies. They have attracted a lot of money, and as I sometimes do, I've come to this story from the perspective that there's this industry that's moving ahead, and he represents a player that's in the middle of that industry, where I think there's if you believe that the valuations of the public comps, he's a long ways from that. So I sort of feel like there's this thing about just him being able to capitalize on that valuation disconnect. But this is a great story. I really like it. It's really exciting, I think. And so I think everybody will like it. But we put out coverage on it. You can go to the site and get it. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. Because we do have quite a lot of new people here, but I can tell you how to do that. So.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Oh, yeah, we got that. Okay.
I'm a walker and talker, so if I had that mic, it would end up getting chucked at one of you guys. So, okay, so just after lunch, I realized we're in that kind of post-lunch sugar low. So if you don't know or can't remember anything else from this presentation, that is what we're building on the top right. We're building the full-scale prototype in our facility right now. So what is it? That is an aircraft that can take off and land vertically. So it does not need any sort of runway infrastructure, just a flat sort of surface or any sort of concrete structure, any helipad, just like a helicopter. But en route, it transforms into just a normal aircraft. So much more efficient, much faster, much cheaper to operate, and much safer than a helicopter. So essentially a helicopter that is cheaper to own and operate, much safer, much faster, and oh, by the way, quieter as well. So there'll be a test on this a little bit later. So the lawyers actually wanted me to have 5 of these slides, if you believe it. Yeah. So what's a Horizon aircraft? This is a group of practical aviators and engineers that have a lifetime of experience building aircraft and electrification. They're busy right now building, like I said, a full-scale aircraft. A while ago, I was an Air Force pilot near the end of my career. Not because they were forcing me up, by the way, it was my choice. And a group of investors approached my father, who owned an aerospace business, and they were really excited about this all-electric vertical takeoff and landing sort of air taxi space. This eVTOL space, sort of like the Jetsons, right? Sit from one place in the city to another, and they were really excited about that. They saw us as a bunch of practical folks. I have 2 decades flying jets in the Air Force. That is like 60 years flying airplanes. You probably hit me upside the head if I said it that way. But yeah, so practically speaking, they wanted a real look at the market space in this emerging advanced air mobility market to see if this was a realistic thing that could be done, whether it made sense or not. Overwhelmingly, we found that it did make sense, but there was a huge market gap growing. All of these all-electric machines would have about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of lithium-ion batteries on board, and we didn't think that was a great idea for a flying machine, and they were all going to be limited to very short ranges. So we put together a really interesting concept for an aircraft that was more practical. Hybrid electric powered, so it has a gas engine on board. It could recharge itself while airborne and after it landed. Much faster, could carry almost as much, and just cheaper to own and operate than a helicopter. We'll get into some of that in a bit, but yeah, the proof's in the pudding. It's been a fantastic journey so far. So why should you care about what I say? You probably looked on the website, maybe not. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force for 20 years, lucky enough to do the Canadian version of Top Gun. Got a mechanical engineering degree along the way. Did some license to be dangerous in business along the way, directed some major projects in the Air Force as well. Was in procurement for 3 years, trying to buy stuff and integrate it. New weapon systems onto the jets, new radar systems. And I'll tell you, 3 years in procurement is enough to make you want to think about a second career. So basically, a license to be dangerous. I get to ask all the engineers all the really embarrassing questions. They can laugh at me, and every once in a while, I have a good idea. I also do have an airline transport pilot's license, so I know what it's like to fly commercially. I've written a couple of the patents that underlie the core technology of our aircraft, so I can sort of tap dance up here if anyone has technical questions. We're building a great team. I won't go into all the different folks on the screen. You can read yourself. Jason's here to keep me honest. Correct me if I say something stupid. But I will say over the last couple of months, I'd say the last 6 to 12 months, we have got world-class folks on board. New CTO that has, from a major OEM in the space, that has been to the future, that was producing a full-scale all-electric aircraft, and a few other, the head of propulsion from one of the major OEMs as well. So this is a world-class team that's building a legitimate machine right now. And there it is. I'll get into the technology a bit more. It's in its vertical takeoff and landing mode right now. You can see the distributed electric fans in the wings and the small wings at the front, the canards. They power it to lift off the ground. When it wants to go forward, the pusher prop at the back, for those technical folks, that is connected directly to the gas turbine engine, pushes the aircraft forward, and we'll save the party tricks in a minute for our patented wing technology. Some impressive performance. Okay, so there it is again in its vertical takeoff and landing mode. 460 kilometers an hour, right? So the average speed for some of the competitors in this space in the 200 kilometer an hour range. Not even that. 800 kilometers, right? So we're burning a fuel source, no kidding, that has 30 to 40 times the energy density of even the best batteries, right? So again, it's machine laser designed for the end user and not for some fancy marketing. So about 10 times, I'd say 5 to 6 times the range of our competitors, which is nice. Carrying 700 kilos and 7 people. So 6 people in the back, 1 pilot in the front, and that's enough space in the cabin to enable some really cool missions as well. You can take off and land vertically, just like a normal helicopter, like I said. You can also do a short takeoff and landing. So maybe you only have 300 or 400 feet of runway. It can still take off and land in a very short distance. And it can also take off and land just like a normal aircraft. Okay, so there it is sitting on the ground. The electric motors in the wings and the canards fire up. The aircraft lifts straight off the ground. Pusher prop engages. The aircraft starts rolling forward. At a safe speed, the wings and the canards close. This is our patented technology, and this is the key to the fast and efficient sort of forward flight. For 98% of the mission, this aircraft is flying just like a normal aircraft. Again, unlike most of the competitors, kind of a multi-copter situation that's very inefficient, or a helicopter that's really inefficient going from point A to point B. Again, that's our patented technology, and that is working right now on a large-scale prototype. So we have a large-scale prototype currently flying. So if you can build a faster, cheaper, and safer helicopter, there's going to be a lot of pretty interesting things you can do with that. That's a Morgan Stanley sort of report. Transport and logistics, like a $1 trillion market by 2040. Transport and logistics, 500 billion, cool. Shared mobility, another 500 billion roughly. Military defense up there says 10 billion, but I'll tell you, we were the recipient of a prestigious US DoD grant for research and development, helped us develop our large-scale prototype. It put us on the radar for a lot of the OEMs. And we are talking to 2 defense prime contractors. One of them said, basically, we designed the same airplane, but you just beat us to the patents. So, can't say who it is right now, but more to follow on that. I'll tell you, when I was in the Air Force, I was planning and leading coalition strike missions. 100 ship missions where we'd have Overwatch, and then we'd go in with helicopters, pick up wounded pilots or wounded folks. I would have loved to have one of these things in the mix. Would have been great. Much faster than a B-22, if anyone knows the space. at about 1/15th the cost to procure, and about 1/80th the cost to operate. Right? B-22 is about $80,000 an hour. Fits in the C-17, pretty proud of this. So load 2 in the C-17, rip to where you need to go, rapid deployment. And again, the Air Forces, the Navies, and the Marine Forces around the world are really excited about that. So get these things where they need to go. We're big on runway independence right now. So literally the definition of don't need a runway. Oh yeah, let's do it again. Really exciting in the emergency medical space, right? A lot of folks spending a lot of money on these $15 million helicopters that cost probably $15,000 to $20,000 an hour to operate. Our cabin is big enough to do medical evacuation. So imagine getting people to the hospital in half the time from that injury site on the side of the road, or literally from twice the distance during that golden hour. Pretty powerful stuff. And 75% cheaper per unit mile that you travel to operate. Right? It's not a helicopter with all these massive inspection cycles, literally trying to fling itself apart at any given time, multiple layers of redundancy, less maintenance, much quicker en route. So if you think about it, about 30% cheaper per hour to use, but in that hour it goes twice as far, and those things stack up. We think there's a lot of room for business travel as well. So, your airline events, at whatever airport, some of the passengers have paid a little bit extra. They hop out on the tarmac, they load into one of these, and they go directly to where they need to go. Maybe it's a cottage 3 hours to the north. They get there in a fraction of the time, and finding an Uber and renting a car and all that good stuff. Now that's a really exciting way to travel, and I want one of these to travel in. I'm hoping to get the first one off the line, but Batman called and he wants it. So, as a hybrid electric aircraft, it does not need any charging infrastructure. I'll say that again. It needs no vertiports. It needs no high power charging cables. When you land, you don't have to find the world's longest extension cord and plug it back in for 8 hours. It can recharge itself, which is awesome. So think, really bad weather and like a hurricane rolls through and knocks down the entire power grid. Instead of hiring an $80,000 $25,000 an hour helicopter to roll in slowly and try to fix stuff, rapidly deploy these without any power grid whatsoever. With a hybrid on board, it has a generator that could operate as a mobile command center, you name it. Pretty cool. So I mentioned much cheaper to own and operate. I'm not going to go through the slide in super detail. So for a 500-hour use per year, you can see the math works out pretty well. So we're half the cost of a helicopter right there per hour, per unit length. We refined our model and it's actually a little bit better than that right now, which is nice. So faster, almost the same payload as a helicopter, like I said, much cheaper. Notice the all-electric folks, and we pride ourselves on doing some realistic math. That's using realistic numbers for lithium-ion batteries, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of them, getting changed out ever so often at current market prices. That'll come down, which will be exciting, but again, it's hard to beat the metrics. It's another thing that I'm really excited about. This is an airplane that is built for bad weather. Okay, what's the number one reason most helicopters crash? Anybody? They're usually trying to avoid clouds, right? So helicopter operations, 99% of them operate in good weather only. It's a tough operation. A bunch of high net worth individuals show up for their sightseeing tour. They want to go from point A to point B, and the pilot looks out and sees the clouds that are low and says, "Yeah, we can't go." And they don't understand why, and get really mad. They never fly with them again. And so there's this diametrically opposed thing where the operators really want to fly these folks. The passengers are putting a lot of pressure on these folks to fly, and the helicopters cannot fly in bad weather. There's only a few in the world that can actually fly in clouds with no icing. And to fly under instrument rules, so in clouds, like normal commercial aircraft, it's a very rare thing to carry passengers. Okay? This aircraft we're aiming for certification for flight into known icing. And as a normal aircraft, flying 98% of mission just on normal sort of windborne flight, it will be able to fly in clouds under IFR rules, just like any commercial aircraft. Really safe and operationally effective. You don't have to tell your passengers that you can't go, right? As long as the weather at the destination is sufficient to land, yeah, it can fly just under normal, like I said, instrument flying rules, like any commercial aircraft that flies now. Makes it very safe. And that's exciting. You talk to operators, that blows them away, that one thing. So the metrics, the speed, the layers of safety are great. The fact that they can use them all year round, I know how to disappoint customers, that's pretty significant. So where are we now? Lots of words on this slide. Essentially, we have a half-scale prototype that's up and flying. That aircraft in the bottom right is a real one. That's not a rendering. That is a 22-foot wingspan. So from here to the wall, about 15 feet long, weighs about 600 pounds. If you do your research, and I'm sure you will, in this space, there are very few companies that are flying a large-scale prototype. In 2 years, we will have a full-scale prototype ready to fly. Any comps on the market, you can look this up, we're at least at 20x to that metric, even the lowest, to a public company that's flying a large-scale prototype. And only a handful are flying any sort of size like this. That's large enough to prove the technology at a large scale, and we are currently building the full-scale aircraft right now, which is very exciting. Love that slide. It's like chained to the ground, but that's our half-scale prototype in hover testing. And you can check out a lot of the flight tests actually on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, Horizon Aircraft, you can see a lot of really cool stuff that Jason's done on the team and get the real personal feel, but also see some of those large-scale prototype flight tests. Another cool shot of it in the wind tunnel. That's a climatic wind tunnel, by the way, and we'll use that to test all the cold weather stuff on the full-scale aircraft to make sure it's battle-hardened and ready for the real world. We're talking to a lot of folks that are, of course, very interested. We have a huge amount of outreach now that we've kind of demonstrated our forward progress. We've laid out the milestones and we're hitting them, and that's exciting for a lot of folks. We're talking to the regional operators, of course. If you have a helicopter fleet and you're primarily going just from point A to point B, that is about half of the global helicopters, by the way. You're pretty excited about something that is safer, cheaper, quieter, and most of all, 75% cheaper per unit mile to operate. We're talking to some large operators as well, again on the business travel model, and we've seen United in this space make a $2 billion order into Archer and a few other large OEMs like that. Vehicle finance. So we just got back from Ireland, and there's a lot of lessors interested in potentially acquiring large fleets of these to then lease out. And Brian Merker, our CFO, who used to work in a public company that was dedicated to helicopter operations, built an incredible financial model for us. Very detailed, and under NDA, we've shared that with a number of lessors. And they're very excited about the economy, basically all the numbers that stack up correctly. Finally, parts manufacturers, of course, we're going to be supporting this fleet when we get going globally. That's a significant source of revenue for a lot of the large OEMs, and we're going to follow the same model. Okay, everyone asked me about certification, so instead of answering questions later, I'll talk about it right now. It's a long process to certify a new aircraft. Let's rewind to 2021. There was a question whether these types of aircraft could even be certified in the first place. Fast forward, I should have said rewind. Fast forward to 2025, all of the rules have been established for the certification of these new aircraft, and the beginning few, so Joby's S4, Archer's Midnight, they will be certified within the next, most likely 12 to 18 months. So now we spent all that money establishing the rules, we can play by that rule book, which is nice. There's visibility, it's much lower risk for investors getting into the space, and quite frankly, there's much more sophisticated conversations about how these aircraft are going to be certified. We're based in Canada, which allows us a number of advantages. One, there's a lot of non-dilutive financing for sustainable aviation out there, which is great. Two, we work with Transport Canada, which is a smaller, more agile organization than the FAA, which is currently inundated with 600 different companies trying to type certify these types of aircraft. So we get a little more personalized attention. Not to mention the dollar is pretty attractive for investors up there. The Canadian Regulatory Agency has specialty in power lift. So there's a lot of bench strength there. We also have on our board of directors a gentleman by the name of John Maris, basically a Canadian Aerospace Hall of Famer, founded a company called Certification Center Canada, where he cherry-picked all of the best certification people from North America, formed a company, and they were working with them to put together a really lean, really realistic plan that we'll start hitting milestones for very soon. Okay, so that's it. Unlike a lot of the companies that you research in the space that took a if you build it, they will come approach and are all electric and have thousands of pounds of batteries on board. We were laser focused on designing a machine that could be built with real technology, with a world-class team that's very practical. Yeah, that's going to do some amazing things. So I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'll finish up there. Yes?
For your medical version, do you have a partner for kitting out the medical suite, like
Yes.
Air Methods sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's a few options. We haven't selected our final partner, but we've visited a few of those folks, and they do it right. So you take the airplane there, you give them all the CAD drawings, and they do it for you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked with them, and we've actually made some provisions. Good example is the door and the ingress, and how we're actually going to get the stretcher in and out. And so we've adjusted the cabin dimensions and some of the stuff in there for that. Yes, sir.
What metal do you use?
So carbon fiber on a lot of it. There could be some aluminum actually on the wings, which would help on the prototype keep costs down from a manufacturing perspective, but that's not settled yet. It's mainly carbon fiber with some titanium. There's some Kevlar and some of the wraps for each of those engines. Each of those engines, by the way, is a separate unit, right? So one can't destroy the next one and can't destroy the next one. So each is a separate, I should have foot stomped that earlier. It's mechanically, thermally, electrically isolated, so no cascading failures. We can fly with like 30% of them disabled, unlike a helicopter that only has one, right? So it's not good when you lose that thing. Yep.
How did you pick the size?
That's a great question. That took a lot of time, to be quite frank. So it was a balance of creating a larger version, which we actually have shown the military. So we have a larger twin engine concept that we have not unveiled yet. But that was just early days when we were putting the concept together. This one, the 7 passenger, so six passenger, 1 pilot size, was perfect for medevac. The economics were kicking butt on the helicopter scale. And it was, if you go up by an order of 2 from weight, you go up by an order of 10 on manufacturing cost, and the prototype was pretty expensive. So this was a really nice in-between thing that would compete against a lot of helicopters and just blow them out of the water, quite frank. Yeah.
Michael, did you know part of the answer was titanium?
I didn't know. I'm gonna have a discussion after.
Small amounts.
You can use more if it's cheap.
We have some questions over here.
Yeah, one question, are you targeting kind of the leasing program, or are you targeting like a platform service too, or to sell a platform service?
Yeah, so what we're not doing is, like some of the other companies that are promising to be an operator at the same time as an OEM, like there's a reason why Airbus, doesn't operate its own airline. When I left the Air Force, I flew for a little bit in a company called Top Aces, and they operated under what's called an air operator certificate, and with military jets that were certified for civilian use, right? So they went through the certification program. It is so tremendously complicated just to operate those aircraft. It's a whole company in and of itself, right? 1,000 people. And so I don't, good luck to those folks that are gonna build them and then also operate their own air taxi. I think that is far more complicated than they would like to admit. We are just laser focused on being a great OEM and building an awesome machine that's gonna be widely proliferated and supporting that machine globally. Yes, sir.
Will you, I don't want you to say something else. Can you talk about maybe the
I
next
usually do.
milestone?
Sorry?
What the next milestone?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me you have something coming up here in the next 90 days, maybe.
Yes, and so this has been publicly released. We are actively in our flight test program for the large-scale prototype, that piece that I showed a little bit earlier. When it completes what's called transition, so that means it's taken off, it's hovered, it's accelerated forward, it's closed its wings, and it's achieved full transition to normal wing-borne flight. That is a huge milestone. There's only a couple companies in the world that have actually accomplished that at any large-scale prototype. We will be accomplishing that soon. Yeah, I mean, that's what we said. It's, we're on track with the program. We ran into a bit of cold weather, but we've learned enough from it that we're actually building a full-scale aircraft, like I said, that is the next major milestone. We will transition that large-scale prototype, and that's going to be huge.
So, can you kind of, what are the technical hurdles to get from there to the full?
So we're already starting to, great question, by the way, we're already starting to de-risk that program. If you walked in the hangar right now, you'd see a 32-inch disc fan that is the main propulsion unit on the full-scale aircraft, about to spin up and measure thrust, measure thermals, measure the electrical signals and everything, and we're going to bust it and build it again and make it better. You'll see actuators moving forward and back, so we're de-risking the full-scale technology. So the half-scale aircraft, all the information we've learned from that has de-risked a certain amount. We know it's going to work. Now it's tweaking and building the full-scale propulsion units and the main core technologies and proving those out. We'll be very vocal along the way as we tell that story of success. And then, no kidding, in 24 months, you'll see a full-scale aircraft sitting in the hangar, which I cannot wait for. It's going to be great.
So you don't have to violate any laws of physics to get there?
No, it's, again, we are very proud of this. We don't need batteries to double their density. Ducted fan technology has been around for the last 70 years. It's been proven, it works. We know all about it. We're not counting on electric motors doing some fancy breakthrough either. In fact, we discount all of the specifications that the manufacturers give us because they all lie and they cheat. Same with the battery manufacturers. But yes, lots of success stories, successful milestones along the way. Yes, sir.
What's the ceiling?
Pardon me?
What's the ceiling of the plane?
Oh, the true ceiling is way above 10,000 feet, but we're limiting it to 10,000 feet as an unpressurized aircraft initially. It doesn't really need to go much higher than that, to be quite frank.
Do you have a budget on cost yet? Budget on cost to build?
Oh, we do. So this is a long conversation about how aircraft are actually sold. There's usually a price up here plus buyer-specific optional functions that you can purchase. Call that maybe 10 million, and then we offer discounts. And if we sell them in the $6 million range, that would be highly profitable for us. So if that makes sort of fuzzy sense.
Just with the manufacturing timeline, once you have it like up and running, is there a big difference between producing that versus, say, a regular helicopter or a fixed wing plane?
Yeah, it's going to be much simpler to produce than a helicopter. Again, helicopter is this symphony of impossibly complicated parts, each of which, there's the main shaft on the Robinson R44 takes 14 months to manufacture, for example, because of the tolerances and the testing inspection. So much simpler to manufacture. My father was in advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing for a long time, so we have everything we do, we have looked through to manufacturing. So that's why the wings aren't tapered fancy, every single fan unit is the same, and there's a lot of design for manufacturing that's gone into it.
One more.
Yes, sir.
What do you need to move faster?
More capital. We've been very efficient so far. You can take a look. We've burned through maybe 20% of the capital that all the other companies have to get to where we are. And so we recently raised, we're good for the next 12 to 18 months. We're going to be raising strategically once the share price rebounds a little bit, and we can get our story to wonderful folks like you folks.
How much?
Right?
How much?
Our next round is we're targeting in the maybe 10 to 15 million range. Again, a very modest amount to continue making that progress.
One more.
Right?
In case of an emergency, do you see this making an emergency descent like?
Oh man, yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. This is where it's awesome, right? Emergency in helicopter is a real life emergency. A real emergency in this aircraft, so say that a whole main power unit fails. There's no more push or thrust. Okay, the batteries are recharged after takeoff. And so you look and you find a spot, it's gliding like a normal airplane, 12-to-1 ratio or whatever, so it's really, really efficient. You find a spot, you can open up the wings, transition to vertical landing, and land at any spot. You don't have to crash land in the field or find a runway that's available. And again, you can accomplish that landing with a fraction of the motors. So much, even over and above an airplane. I've had engine failures in an airplane. My left engine exploded in the Air Force, right? Almost took out the whole airplane. So this thing, it's even safer than a normal aircraft.
In the sense of being very similar to a helicopter.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, so what's the numbers there? What sort of, yearly sales numbers per unit? What's the market for this thing?
Oh, so we can easily ramp up and sell 250 to 300 per year without blinking an eye. That's using current demand modeling. Cirrus SR-22, like a normal private aircraft, they sell 250 to 300 of them per year. We can easily manage that. And that's where we're tooling up for about that 250 to 300 units per year.
Okay, so you'll be around, right?
I will be around. Yeah, I'm going to be super excited to watch
So you're not
it.
gonna tell them the bad part.
But part of what? There's no bad parts.
Yeah, you're Ohio State fan. That's.
Should have said that.
Sorry, I'm an Irish fan. I'm still a little bit.
Nice.
So.
Thanks, folks.
Great, thanks.